Hello viewers, we are back with another video and a nostalgia rating series. Hopefully you've been following along. We're now at tier 4 and this time we tackle With a Vengeance, an 8-player operation from Hand of Fate DLC. For this we've used tier 3 vendor gear with Central City trinkets, rings, mask and weapons, no R&D modding, level 2 home turf trinkets and 65 spent skill points. This is Anha and I am joined by
Ivybird,
Dreadwolf,
Former Bob,
Mitchell,
Tesseract,
Cub,
Luerana,
and Flame Fury.
As we progress, there are 4 feats to be aware of. The first is Spirited Defense. Complete the operation without letting any spirits disrupt the summoning circle. Shadowed Vengeance. Defeat Eclipso while he is in the Shadow of Vengeance form. Be Sharp. Defeat 49 Enraged Vengeance Stingers. And finally, A Little to Wrath. Handle 290 victims of Eclipso's Vengeance spell. And we begin from the perspective of Dreadwolf in the damage roll.
well, first thing, this bit is so boring if you're a healer. Since there's
lots of things to do for a healer.
and one thing to be aware of though is that if you look at where L is standing, the tank, he's actually pulling the spirits into the circle. If you want to complete the feat, do not pull the spirits into the circle because they're not allowed to disrupt it.
Yeah, so the feat you're referring to there, Dread, is a Spirited Defense. So you need to complete this without letting any of these spirits disrupt it. So you'll know it's been disrupted when the Anks are disappearing.
Onks.
Anks.
The onks.
So if you need the feat, highly recommended that your tank stands in one of the corners and pulls everything in that direction.
Shouldn't that be your tunk?
You're not allowed to lose any of the Anks from that circle, so if one of them goes, then you won't get the feat, you'll have to try again. But you won't fail the spit unless you lose all of the Anks.
As a controller, when we first went into this content, Tess and Cobe, did you find yourselves having to try and lock down the enemies in order to achieve the feat?
You can do that a little bit, particularly if the tank pulls them away from the centre instead of into the centre. They do break out after a little while though, they can't keep them perma-stunned.
that still give you time to complete the feat and make sure DPS can have time to DPS them.
And you can always put a pull in your bar and pick up any stragglers that the tank hasn't managed to grab.
Yeah, as you can see, they go down fairly fast.
They do these days.
It's the red
Well,
ones.
yeah.
The red ones are a little more hardy, aren't they? Take a bit longer to take down, but
They're only in the alert, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
The red ones?
no.
I thought they're
Occasionally
all the
there
same
is
colour.
occasionally there is the odd red one that spawns in here.
Oh, I've never seen one.
Doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
So successfully defended Dr. Fate there. Our boss has just spawned and we've switched to Mitchell, the healer's perspective.
This guy does quite a nasty AoE on himself that'll knock everyone away. You'll probably see it shortly. That's something to be aware of.
It used to be
Probably
much
a
worse
melee
than that,
DPS.
but they changed it, didn't they?
Well,
Is this
He
guy...
should
make-
properly smash you.
did they make it easier?
Well,
They did.
they changed.
How'd
it
you
to-
guess, Flame?
They changed it to make it harder, and then they changed it to make it easier again.
between there was even a bug where he one-shot everyone who was not in melee range.
See, that's the one I'm
Luckily
talking.
fixed.
That's the one I'm talking
Yeah.
about, and I reckon it was good
That's a nice
Because-
mechanic, that was.
because it had a tail, so you just jumped in, avoided, and jumped back. People went on about it, said it was a bug, so they changed it. I wish they hadn't.
This beginning section is really just your basic tank and spank there. Once you completed that, you move through different sections, so you go through Metropolis. You don't want to go out too quickly though. I don't know if it's still happening, but you get put into a different phase or you get put back to your last location.
It used to take a long time to switch over to the correct one.
I think they fixed that.
Yeah, they did.
I was just gonna say, I saw Mitchell open his inventory there and looking at the Marks of Triumph. One thing that still annoys me is that these Marks of Triumph that you get in these ops, they come in packs that you have to activate and before you can consume them.
That annoys me as well.
That just
So you get one
it's-
thing, at the end, unpack it, and you
Greed.
go, oh, I've got one thing again.
This was the most boring part of the operation for me, all the travelling between the different areas.
I can only imagine if you weren't flying.
At the
well, you
time,
could have been an acrobat, as you saw with Test there.
at the time of this DLC's release, and just prior to it in the months leading up, a lot of people were talking about the fact that there is no content in the open world to force people out into it. And I think this was their kind of way and idea of getting people back into open world, so it looks populated, when the lower levels are running through and they see these big groups going for this content. And I think it was partly successful in that respect, but I think a little bit more could be done.
It's always funny when you see the odd player that doesn't really know what's going on. They're about level 6 and they jump in and try and help you and die immediately.
I think they refined the operation concept a lot more since then as well. I mean, this was the first attempt at it, and they've gotten a lot better. But yeah, the scenes where everybody's just flying for miles and miles, it's not great. We might fast forward some of those.
At this level, communication is quite important as well. So as you're seeing, we take them down and they can be activated. Once you do, additional enemies will spawn in that location. So if you're taking down 3 enemies and 3 people activate it, you can quite easily and quite quickly become overwhelmed.
As you said, communication is important so that you don't split up either. You have to tell people what group we're going after.
General rule of thumb, just follow the tank. When you get to your last one that you have to defeat and then activate to face the Wraith of Vengeance, we jump onto this rooftop here because it is quite isolated. There are no other enemies that can get in the way.
Carrying on from what was said before about making sure you're fighting the same groups, it is possible to get up multiple bosses if several people activate at the same time in different groups, which can be fun when you're overgeared, but when you're set up for it, not really.
We've done that on purpose before,
yeah,
haven't
I'm sure we
to
got a
get as
video of
many
that.
up as possible.
The bee guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we were a little bit overgeared, and let's be honest, the bee guy's not the strongest.
How many bosses can we spawn?
This guy's got quite an annoying attack where he'll transform you into one of the spirits.
Annoying, that's amazing fun.
And I'm pretty sure if anyone's nearby you when you're in that form, you turn them as well.
Yeah, that's why it's
You
fun.
infect them.
Yeah, you touch them and it turns them into wraiths.
So that's quite funny.
If you're the DPS and you want to see and someone's been out DPSing you and you get transformed, just find that guy and just bump into him a little.
Terrible when it's the troller or the healer though that gets turned. Can't do anything.
Yep.
Oh yeah, defend the controllers. They need to feed power to us DPS players.
Oh gee.
We won't go there.
Isn't that their only job?
That's what
So
I heard.
you may have noticed we switched to Mitchell's perspective again. He's just gracefully flying through the city.
Pro.
Have you got super flight at that moment, Mitch?
Yes, I think at that moment I'd managed to unlock super
You
flight.
found that, had you? That's good.
I got
Forget
told
to
about
Those are
that.
the faces
into
when
it.
I check inventory, turn my marks and all.
Kind of looks like you forgot to spec into it when you did your skill points.
I have on occasion forgot to spec into it, but not this time.
One thing I don't like so much about the design of the operations is that you phase through different zones via teleporters, because that's the situation where some people have disconnects and stuff. The open world parts where you just fly from one to the other just take long.
All of the ad groups that you fight in this, you'll kill one, activate it, more will spawn, you activate them. It's only the first guy that you kill when you activate him. They're the only ones that can spawn the bosses. So in that last one we saw, you would activate one ghost, he would spawn 3 ghosts, you activate those, they go away. Once you've completed all of the objectives, the three that spawn, they'll never spawn the boss. It's always the original, and it's the same with this area, and it's the same with the next area. So you can kind of avoid getting the extra bosses if you know which ones to activate or not to activate.
In this area, if you don't activate the first stage when they go down, they turn into a more powerful version of themselves, and there's a feat based on them, which is killing 30 of them, I think, of the more powerful version.
49.
40, much as you don't actually have to be on the mission to do that, and these guys aren't actually that tough. I found it was easier just to come back here and do it when you've got spare time and just kill your way through them to get the feat.
I love it how the
You
healer
won't be on my
went away.
view. Because I remember this, and I was off killing something else, and you'd already messed about with the boss on this side.
You may notice on the right-hand side there,
Communication.
Anhur had a little yellow honeycomb orb under his feet. You do want to get off those because at this level they can one-shot you.
Especially if the healer's nowhere near.
The process for the bosses here is quite samey. It's the tank holding them static. Everyone else does the damage around them.
Did
That
you see
bomb
this
attack.
boss is already using weapon mastery? He does staff and two-handed combos.
Yeah, the bomb attack, which is on this one and the next one, melee DPS in particular, needs to be a bit wary of that. Because they're all going to be close together, and you're going to get hit by multiples of them.
What is that base item that always drops there? Like a furnace oven or something?
It's
No.
a blacksmith.
It's a gym sink.
Crystals.
I was thinking about the blacksmith forge.
Yeah, I
That's
was
what-
Yeah,
always
that
that's
as
what you
well.
meant.
getting the blacksmith forge. You'll always get that if you really want one. Do this operation.
Blacksmith forge, culinary stove, and the gym sink.
Yeah, I've never seen a culinary stove drop there. I ended up having to buy mines off the broker.
Yeah, alternatively to running this operation, you could probably buy all that for about one.
We've switched to Tesseract's point of view here, controller.
Controllers do other stuff. They don't just feed power.
Yeah, they get first locations if they're acrobats.
Yeah.
The hack.
And here we
got
can
it.
see them pulling.
So this section is probably the most problematic, shall we say, for the entire instance. In order to fulfill the objective that you can see on the bottom right, you have to pull them towards this Ankh. And they have to die within its radius.
Pro pull one.
Ankh.
That was a pro
Come
pull.
towards the Ankh.
So you can see, I mean, as controllers, Tess and Cobe, you guys do this as a matter of fact, as something you always do, or is it just at this particular occasion you thought, you know what, we're breezing through it pretty easily, you'll jump in and give a hand?
I always do it, but that's in part because when you get the higher gear, a lot of the time you just don't run this with a tank anymore. So
And you can be one shot if you try.
yeah, that's important to know that if your healers aren't on the ball,
Unbelievable.
He was probably still at the B.
If you kill the ads outside the circle, they just get back up, and you're just dragging this part out, and there's no need for it.
The team looks like it can get quite split up if you've got multiple controllers going off in different directions to pull stuff into it. You've got the tank going off to grab people. How do you handle that as a healer, Liarana? Do you kind of stick with the Ankh itself and heal around that, or do you follow someone around?
Usually I stick around with the Ankh, because there's where the most action is going on. Especially if you don't have a tank when the DPS will get the aggro. And if people kill the ads outside of the Ankh, the ads stand up and you can end up with a lot more than you were expecting, because someone else might have the next ones already.
This is something that can get really annoying in pugs when people go, we don't need a tank. And the trollers don't usually have pulls on their bars. We just have to, do some dots, then everyone move back to the Ankh and hope for the best that people don't kill them before they get there.
I was just demonstrating in the expert use of the jump pull. Just pull that kite things over our head.
That's a good mechanic to explain that when you pull something, they are pulled to your location, to where you are when you do the pull. So if you are in midair, they get pulled to you, to where you were when you pulled it. So they usually fly over you, so you pull them further. Jump pull for the win.
And Bob, you undoubtedly do controller-based pulling as well. When you're doing that, do you struggle to feed power to the group, or do you communicate with the other controller in the group and see who's going to do what, or is it pretty much it only takes a few seconds so you can get in and out really quick?
It's pretty quick. If you throw a pot move, run in, do a jump pull, you shouldn't be wasting enough power that it's hurting the group by any means. You want the DPS to not be attacking those ads until they get near the yank anyway, and so the need to be hitting recharge isn't there yet. The group should be fine.
We switched here to Dreadwolf's perspective damage roll. Very similar once again. The tank holds him statically. You can see the red orbs on the floor that have to be evaded. Around again this level, it can one-shot you.
Expert dodging, if I may say so myself.
And you do say so yourself, sir.
I do.
With Weapon Mastery, the content this far back has kind of been trivialized, if you will. You can see how fast they're going down. At the time, we didn't really expect that to be happening. But such as it is.
What you might see on this part is, a while ago it started that the minimap is bugged. You don't see where you have to go anymore. The last boss fight will take place in the building where you also find the Spectre mission.
Not quite the same building.
It's not the same one, but it's in Glenmorgan Square.
They use the same map, but the same instance map, but it's not actually the same entrance
exactly.
location.
The boss fight room, exactly. But I think that you can see on the minimap. See, I scrolled out there, so you can see the portal. You have to go to the east there. I think there. I go.
As soon as you are there, you will see the teleporter.
Yeah, you can see on my minimap as well. There's a portal in the northeast corner.
Just a bit of trivial information. When this was first released, the encounter we're now off to face used to be an open world, so you could have multiple groups fighting against this end boss here. And it was fun, but once you reached a point where it just became so easy, they kind of put it into its own instance.
It wasn't also that the sheer number of groups running about in the open world actually made the open world slightly unstable, especially on the PlayStation servers.
Yeah, heard they're having a lot of issues.
There were a lot of loot issues too.
Yes.
Oh god, yes.
There was a sharing of loot where some groups didn't do enough damage and therefore weren't entitled to loot and had to go and find another boss, which was upsetting.
Or they were even loot lock at the start.
Yeah, wasn't there a time as well where you just had to nudge the boss to be part of the so random people could just come do a few attacks on the bosses and then get marks.
Those damn ninjas.
Epic landing there, Dread.
Dynamic entry.
You're not a hero till you've done a 3-point landing.
Exactly.
Remind me, the instance we're in now, where you face Eclipso, this is also the same kind of arena you face him during the solo missions, or you face something during the solo missions?
You face the Spectre, yeah, which is possessed by Eclipso. No, Eclipso wants his power, and that's
which is being manipulated by Eclipso. And then you.
It was fun to one-shot him when you're in Spectre form.
You eventually become the Spectre and then blow him up.
So you can see at the moment that the Mitchell is pulsing with a purple aura. You don't want to stand in that purple aura. You have to avoid your teammates. You should absolutely avoid your teammates and not run into the middle of them.
That's your cue to hook people.
It'll basically
that's what we do nowadays. what we do nowadays. I got the aura. I'm gonna hug everyone. Everyone to the center.
The ank in the middle of the room, that you can either activate to turn off the purple pulsing thing, or you can activate it to knock Eclipso out of the shadow form that he's just gone into now.
Shadow
You
form's
should-
lots of fun and will potentially kill your entire team.
Yeah, you should really keep him out of that form if you're in the gear that we're in at the moment, because he has the potential to almost wipe your party.
There is a feat, however, for killing him in that, and well, as long as he's in that form. And we may have got a little forgetful that we could switch it off, shall we say?
And boom.
Bam.
And
There you
boom.
go.
Oh,
So that's, we're miles away from each other there. I don't even know how that happened.
No, that was his stomp attack, I think.
He does spawn ads periodically as well. That's a simple process. The tank brings them into himself, and you AoE them down.
Mission complete.
So based on what we were saying for the gear we had, you can clearly see how this could wipe you. The damage was quite immense. And that brings us to the end of the Tier 4 operation with a vengeance. We hope that's been useful to you. We're always open to comments, suggestion and feedback. Once again, thank you for watching.
Bye.
See you next
Guys.
time.
yeah.
Take care.
See you.